All right, so here's where we left off. We're doing the nth roots of a complex number. And so just one thing to point out here. This 2 pi right here is implying that our angle right there is in radians. So we'll do that in our problems. If you wanted to have your angle in degrees, you could change that 2 pi to be 360. So you could have theta plus 360 times k over n if you really wanted to. Okay. All right. So our first job on this next problem is to figure out r and figure out theta so we can use this formula. So we have 4 radical 3 minus 4. So if I kind of think of the graph, that's over and down, so it's in the fourth quadrant. All right, so my r value. So r is the square root of 4 radical 3 when I square it. So it'll be 16 times 3, which will be 48. Plus negative 4 when you square it, 16. So 48 plus 16 is 64. Square root of 64 is 8. Then for my theta, I'll be doing the arctangent of negative 4 over 4 radical 3. So if you pop that in your calculator, it comes out to negative 30. So negative 30, that means you can use negative 30, but we could also use 330, which I'm going to choose to do. Or, like I said earlier, our angle needs to be in radians, so I need to use 11 pi over 6 if I'm going to use the formula the way it's written. Right, and so if you want to use degrees, you could do, like I said, and use 360 instead of 2 pi. All right, so let's start off. We got k equals 0. So k equals 0. So I start off with the third root, because I'm finding 3 roots right here. So the third root of r, well, r is 8. And then I have cosine of theta, which is 11 pi over 6, plus 2 pi times k, which is 0 right now, over n. Well, n is 3. So plus I sine of all of this. So 11 pi over 6 plus 2 pi times 0, so that's just 11 pi over 6. And divided by 3 means the 6 and the 3 are going to multiply to 18. So I get 11 pi over 18. All right, or you can put those things in your calculator. 11 pi over 6 divided by 3, you'll get 11 pi over 18. All right, so I basically have this. I have this front part is a 2. So 2 cosine plus I sine of 11 pi over 18. All right, so 11 pi over 18 is not something that you're supposed to memorize off your unit circle. So we're just going to go and type it in. All right. So I need 2 times the cosine of the 11 pi over 18. So 2 times the cosine of 11 pi over 18. All right, now I'm putting in a radian, so I want to make sure my mode, it's in radians. Okay. All right, so there it is, negative 0.68. And if I do the same thing, but use a sign instead, I'll get 1.88. All right, so my first answer is this. My first answer is negative 0.68 plus 1.88i. Okay. All right, so the next time I do it, I have k equals 1. So to do this 3 times, so we'll do k equals 2 to stop. All right, so I have cube root of 8 in the front. That doesn't change, so that's going to be a 2. And then I have cosine. This time I have 11 pi over 6 plus 2 pi times 1. Oh my goodness, sorry. Sorry, my board's messing up on me. Over 3 again. All right, so we got to figure out what all that makes. So easy thing to do in your calculator is to do this calculation, but without all of that pi business. All right, so go ahead and do 11/6 plus 2. So 11 over 6 plus 2, and then divide that by 3. It'll pop out 23 over 18. All right, so I got 23 pi over 18. So I have 2 CIS of 23 pi over 18. All right, so I would just type it into my calculator like I did the last one. So let me just tell you the answer. I would get negative 0.68 again, but this time plus 1.88i. Oh, wait a minute. That's the same as the last one. Hang on, I'm going to pause and check something. All right, sorry about that. I had changed my paper and then, I don't know, I made it wrong. All right, so you get negative 1.28 and then minus 1.53i. All right. So the last one, when k equals 2, we're going to do all the same stuff, but we're going to have this thing right here change to a 2. So I have 2 cosine. I have 11 pi over 6 plus 2 pi times 2 over 3 plus I sine. And when you put in 11/6 plus 4 divided by 3, you end up with 35 pi over 18. All right, so we have 2 CIS of 35 pi over 18. So in your calculator, if you do 2 times the cosine of 35 pi over 18, you get a 1.97. So that's my x equals. All right, and then minus 0.35, 0.35i. Right. So we'll do one in class next time that comes out to like some prettier answers and all these decimals. All right, last one. So over here, I have to find all the fifth roots, so I have to do this 5 times. All right. So fifth roots of I. So I have like x to the fifth equals I basically. So I have to figure out the r and the theta and all that. Well, remember, I is just 0 plus I. So if I graph that, it's up here at 1. So my r value is 1. My angle is pi over 2. So that's a really easy thing to figure out. Okay, so let's begin. So I got k equals 0 to start with. So I have, remember, the root of r. Well, you know, I'm doing a fifth root because this is my n right here. And I'm doing the fifth root of 1 because 1 is my r. So the fifth root of 1 is going to be 1. And let's just do this. Cosine plus I sine of, all right. So I need theta, which is pi over 2. So pi over 2 plus 2 pi times 0 over n, well, n is 5. So I will be getting 1 out front, cosine plus I sine of pi over 2 plus nothing is pi over 2, and then divide by 5, I end up with pi over 10. Okay, so there is my first answer. And let's just leave it like that for now. Okay, you know, if we were going to go put this in our calculator, we would get some answers like we did earlier. So that's just a bunch of calculations, easy to type in. All right. And I have it written, so I'll go ahead and write it actually. So I got 0.95 plus 0.31i. So never mind, I changed my mind. All right, so k equals 0. That was k equals 0, so k equals 1. All right, so now I have the fifth root of 1, which is 1 again. So I'm just going to have cosine plus I sine of, this time it's pi over 2, plus 2 pi times 1 over 5. So on my calculator, I would type in 1/2 plus 2 and divide that by 5, and it would get me pi over 2. So this is cosine plus I sine of pi over 2. So it's going to be a pretty easy answer for us because, you know, cosine of pi over 2 is 0, sine of pi over 2 is 1. So I'm going to get 0 plus I, or just I. All right, so k equals 2. So I have cosine plus I sine. Again, there's a fifth root of 1 outside, but it doesn't matter. It's just 1. I got pi over 2 plus 2 pi times 2 this time over 5. All right, so remember on my calculator, I'm getting that answer to that angle by doing this. I'm starting off with pi over 2. So I'm starting off with 1/2. So I'm doing, you know, leaving out the pi part. Plus 4. Oh, God, sorry. Let me just start over. right, on dividing by 5. So that's how you get your angle, is 9/10 pi. All right, so over here I have CIS of 9 pi over 10. So you type in cosine of 9 pi over 10 and sine of 9 pi over 10, you end up getting um, negative 0.95 plus 0.31i. Right? So you can start to see some of the answers are similar, but not perfect. There's a pattern, but not really. All right, so k equals 3. I will do cosine plus I sine. I'll have pi over 2 plus 2 pi times 3 all over 5. You put that in your calculator, the 1/2 plus 6 over 5. You get cosine plus I sine of 13 pi over 10. All right, which produces an answer of negative 0.59 minus 0.81. Okay, so just 2 more times. So k equals 4. So if you put a 4 here instead of a 3, you would get cosine plus I sine, and it would all come out to 17 pi over 10. So I was wrong, sorry. This is our last time, so we're all the way up at 4. So this is our 5th answer, even though we're at 4, because we started at 0. And when you do this, you get cosine of 17 pi over 10, you will get 0.59 minus 0.81 I. Okay. All right, so there's your 5 answers, and that is it. You are just to make sure that you have up to number 45 done. These 2 we will do in class, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.